Your mind is limitless. The possibilities are endless. Awaken Your Mind Magic shows you how you can dream limitlessly and live your life on a new level. Susan Kathleen speaks with ordinary people who are living extraordinary lives using the power of their mind.
Silver on the outside, gold on the inside. Silver on the outside, gold on the inside. Silver on the outside.
Abundance, prosperity, and success. There are no limits to what you can dream. Join Susan Kathleen on a journey into your dreams, making a difference and living life on your own terms. This is Awaken Your Mind Magic.
Hello and welcome everyone. My guest speaker today is Miriam Smout, who comes from Perth, Australia. She is founder of Redemption Mummas podcasts and has been a mentor and educator for 20 plus years. Miriam has been helping women connect with their true, authentic, genuine selves through her mentoring and podcast, where she interviews everyday, ordinary women who have turned their disappointments, life challenges, and loss into something extraordinary. And for over 10 years, she's been mentoring women, seeing lives transformed from messy, confused, and lost to them finding their beautiful you. And through the years of mentoring, Miriam discovered there were 5 steps that were critical for women to progress through. And these steps break patterns of unhealthy relationships with yourself and others so that you can become a beautiful you, one that can be valued and treasured and loved as you deserve to be. The Beautiful You project takes women through these 5 steps. And with this 12-week transformational journey includes learning, mentoring, and action taking. It's Miriam's mission for women to be empowered and equipped to step into their beautiful you. Through the Beautiful You project, you can develop ways to connect with your true value, purpose, and identity. Welcome, Miriam. It's so good to have you with us today on Awaken Your Mind Magic.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you so much for your invitation and the honour of sharing some time with you. I'm really looking forward to this.
Me too. Considering the fact that you are in Western Australia, I'm in Eastern Australia, or whatever you call it, this side in Brisbane, and there's a whole big stretch of country all in between, and we're still in the same country. And we're in different time zones, aren't we?
Yes, we are, and we are not allowed to even come and visit each other because our Premier in Western Australia has said, no, we are an island right now.
We totally are. Not only are we an island, each state has to stay within the state. And I think this is also one of the reasons why we have a reasonably low death count with COVID-19 at the moment. I believe there's 5 countries that are safe, and one of the ones most safe countries in the world is Australia.
We're so blessed, hey?
We are.
Yeah.
Miriam, it's wonderful to have you on this podcast. And I know through experience, because we podcast together, and through experience that you really do uplift and help so many women through your program. Tell us more about your program and also about yourself and what inspired you to start doing this.
Well, I feel so honoured. I feel so honoured to be able to journey with women. My project has come out of my experience of journeying with women in addiction, coming out of addiction, struggling with addiction, abuse, marriage issues, domestic violence. And I was so fortunate to be able to walk very closely with these women. In fact, quite a number of them ended up living with us for quite some period of time. In fact, one girl lived with us for over 12 months. These women are so broken, they're so destitute, they've lost everything, particularly this girl who lived with us for the longest period. She'd been very maliciously, I have to be careful what I say here because the court case is currently underway with this, but separated from her children by her husband in 24 hours. One was a 4-month-old breastfed baby. For 12 months, we lived with this woman who did not get to see her children very much. None of the conditions of the court affidavit was followed. She was so broken, so destitute that she had nothing to fight with except to try and save her own life. And you can imagine some of the dark times she went through. And today she's alive, and I think that's one of her major, major victories. Because I often looked at her and thought, if I was in your shoes, hearing what I'm telling you right now, I'm not sure I could handle it. But she needed such strong undergirding support to get through that whole experience. And of course, now there's a court case underway to try and restore her back to her children. But these are the circumstances that so many women are facing today. And as I've journeyed with a number of them, I started to think, what if we could just catch them before they got so undone? What if we could just catch them before they unraveled? What if we could just catch them, before there was just nothing left much to put back together? And so that's where my Beautiful You project has come from. It's not for women who are destitute. It's not for women who have nothing left to invest in themselves. It's really for women who know there's something going on in the background, something that is just not right. And I hear this so often. I know something's not right, but I just don't know what it is. That's what the project is for. And it's for women who are ready to take action, because for the beautiful soul that I was sharing about just before, the only action she could take some days was to get herself out of bed. So to ask her then to take action on emotions and processing the life skills and the past and the reasons that she got to where she was just not even possible. So this is for people who are ready to take action and realise that maybe some of the ways that they've done life have maybe been more out of survival than actually really healthy life skills. So I love teaching these things. I love helping women come to grips with their part. We do create our own life. We do create our own circumstances. Even though others might have done things to us, we have allowed things to be done to us as well. And it's a very confronting thing to actually turn and say, I actually had a part in this and I need to understand what that part was. And then I need to not do that again. So what do I need to learn so that I don't do what I did before and got me where I am right now? And that in itself is a huge step for women or men to take. And that's one that I love to see people step into. I love to see people embrace it.
You've got a big heart, and listening to what you have to say to me and to the listeners right now, you say you take people on and they actually live with you in the course of their recovery. Explain more about that. How is it that you help these people?
Well, this is the organic part of how I fell into this whole mentoring thing. I myself have been mentored because I was undone. I was unraveled. I was broken. I was lost. And I was doing what I could to put my life back together, but I needed support. I needed help.
Tell us more about that.
Okay, well, it's been over quite some years. I experienced depression. I have 5 children who I homeschooled. A lot of events through my life kind of came from my husband's very ambitious, entrepreneurial, risk-taking lifestyle, which took us on many roller coaster rides. And sometimes for me, I ended up falling at the bottom and not really coming back up and riding the wave with him maybe as I would have liked. So I've been through a lot in my life in terms of just life experiences, dealing with depression and just working out how to do life with my 5 children, with my very busy husband. But I think it was at a point about 5 years ago, there was a real sudden change that occurred in our life. We'd gone through the GFC and survived that, only just. And by survive, I mean my marriage, our finances. We managed to keep our home. We really did just come out by the skin of our teeth. We started to regroup, but then there was another bust that came around 2012, and that started to really bring a big decline because my husband is into property development. So, of course, property halved in value, our income suddenly plummeted, and he went into a real deep depression himself. So trying to stay married and trying to support him and look after my children became extremely hard. But it was the day he came to me and said, we've got to have a talk. I expected there to be some sort of an adjustment that I would have to make, but I didn't expect what he said. And that was, he said to me, Miriam, you're going to have to get a job. I can't support you anymore. Now, I'd been a stay-at-home mum for 30 years. I'd homeschooled for 25. One of the most confronting things at that time was I suddenly found that all those years, all that value, all that treasure, all that investment that I had made didn't have a place in a resume. It didn't seem to have a place anywhere.
I totally understand there. There are so many women who experience this. And that's whether they are with a husband and partner, whether the person dies or leaves their wife. So I understand totally where you're coming from. And it's wonderful to know that you can tell your story and people can hear that you've turned your story around as well. When you realize that, what was the feeling you had within yourself after having invested all these 25 years with your family, your children, your husband?
I think the best word would be shattered. I felt shattered. I guess it made me realize in our culture, in our Western culture, that the role of mother is not a highly understood or valued one. And yet I meet very few women, whether they're a drug addict or whether they are the one inflicting the violence in the home, who doesn't passionately love their children and will give almost 900% for them. Very, very few. I mean, I can't speak for the worldwide, but there's not many I meet that actually choose to be a really bad mother. And where is that celebrated in our community? Where is there an investment that gives us a degree in, all of those skills that you develop as a mother?
I believe with all the children at home right now and mummies and daddies at home, we will likely rethink that and value those stay-at-home parents, mums or dads, because I've interviewed stay-at-home dads, and it is a full-time, not just job, it's a vocation. It's from your heart and it's selfless.
Yes.
So you say you felt shattered, and as you say, in the Western world, the value on motherhood, even in people having children or being breeders. Let's talk about that. I mean, I come from farming background, so I'll talk about a breeder. But we don't value that And we don't have that respect for our elder woman in the same way that, let's say, the Thais do, or people like that. When you go over there, they rever older women for their wiseness, like we used to in ancient times with sages or witches or whatever it is you want to talk about. I mean, that sounds a bit sort of far out there, but basically, women were valued in a very different way. So when you felt like this and you suddenly were almost, well, you've shattered, which is a wonderful description. How did you pick up those shattered pieces and start putting them together?
It was a process, and I had to do it very quickly because we couldn't put food on the table. And by the way, my mothering was honoured once. I won the Brer Rabbit Award at my husband's workplace.
Brer Rabbit?
The Brer Rabbit, because rabbits breed.
Well, they do. That's why you were laughing.
That's the only time it was honoured, and it wasn't really an honour. I was quite indignant about it at the time. But how I put myself back together was, I was in survival mode. As I said, we had to put bread on the table, and that was where we were at. You know, we had all these properties, but we had no cash flow. We had nothing to live off. We couldn't sell them because even if we did, there wasn't going to be much left. You know, the bank probably would have taken the majority of it at the time. So what I did was remembered how I'd helped my own children go through their university years and have an income. And that was to sponsor them, I guess, pay for them to become swimming teachers. So my background is that I'm a music and drama teacher, and I worked for probably 7 or 8 years teaching music and drama before I married and had my own children. So teaching was in the background for me, and I thought, well, I've been out of the classroom 30 years. I've got no idea what to do if I went back in. I'll be a swimming teacher. I'd help them go through the courses, and I'd been listening to the conversations, so I actually enrolled to be a swimming teacher, and I got this within a week. I was a swimming teacher. I got to the course on the Monday. I was actually accredited and fast-tracked through a clearance system that should take weeks, nearly months, in a day. And on Monday, I was working as a swimming teacher. So that was a really positive thing for me, because instead of focusing on this trauma and all these pieces that I was trying to put back together, it gave me something to do, you know, it gave me somewhere to go, it gave me somewhere to belong. It wasn't a fabulous income at all, but, you know, it's great for a student when you're studying, but I needed to think about how I could increase my income. So my sister, who's actually a deputy principal at a school in Kalgoorlie, which is about 600 kilometres east of Perth, where we used to live for many years, spoke to me, and after a few months said, "What are you doing this for? You should come and do some relief teaching." But in Perth at the time, it was a very competitive environment. A lot of teachers were out of work. I had looked at it, but I just couldn't seem to get any traction with that. And she said, "Look, come and live in Kalgoorlie and I'll give you a job every day of the year." So that was a big transition, because then my son, who was still at home, Johnny, he had to go to school. And he was doing year 11. I think we were doing year 12 at the time. So he went to school at a school, would you believe, where a number of homeschoolers were going for disadvantaged children. His disadvantage was that he'd never been to school. So he went to the disadvantaged school for year 11 and 12. And he did incredibly well. But that for him was a massive adjustment.
It must have been.
I'm living in Kalgoorlie, 600 kilometres away from my husband and him. He's the only one at home at this time. But do you know, I had time for me that I hadn't had for 30 years.
There you go.
I would go to school, I'd do my work, I'm a relief teacher, I walk in the door, I make sure everyone's happy and well and safe, I walk out the door and I wipe my hands. It's a good way to teach, I have to say.
That must have been a real adjustment for you, as 30 years of devoting your entire time to your husband and your 5 children and being a homemaker. And then suddenly you're back in the world of dealing with even more than 5 children. However, you are removed from the emotion of 24/7 being with the family.
It was amazing. The first day I had so much fear and trepidation going back into the classroom, and I'd been warned about Ollie. Ollie was the troublemaker in the class, just watch out for Ollie. At the end of the day, I was saying, all right, good afternoon, everyone. And he goes, oh, Mrs. S, because that's what I get the kids to call me. Mrs. S, he said, I just want to say you're firm but fair.
Oh, bless him. Well, there you are. That was a compliment in itself. That was your good training of 30 years with all your family and children and all the rest. So clearly you knew how to deal with it all. Well done, you.
I walked out of the classroom that day. I laughed and laughed because I thought, well, if ever there was an endorsement, I just got one from Ollie, the troublemaker.
And was he a troublemaker afterwards, or had he just realized that you weren't going to put up with any sort of disruption or anything else like that? You knew what you were doing.
He tried, but I'm a bit of a brick wall. I like to win.
Well, with 5 kids, homeschooling them, you did really well. So obviously Ollie was never the same again.
I certainly had his respect. One of the things I did learn with my 5 children, my second child, David, is a basketballer, and he became very good at basketball. He played state basketball, and his coach said to me one day, the thing about basketball, it's just like sport ballet. You're always trying to just get that partner into a position so that you can win and you can get that next goal. And I thought that just summed up my life with David perfectly. We were constantly in this battle of positioning, me to get the goal or him to get the win over me. And so I certainly did learn a lot from him. But I also came from a background where children were to give respect. And so I just brought that whole mentality into the classroom, which today is very lacking.
Yes, worldwide. Having been in the field of education myself for more than 30 years, and I've traveled all over the world, and it is no exception. There is not that respect. Even in the UK, they call them public schools. I think here they're private schools. And I think it's also, and this is just I'm surmising here, Miriam, it's because of all these restrictions that we have where it's not PC to say something or do something, etc., etc. Obviously, I don't agree with the cane or any of those sort of things. I'm showing my age now because I know what a cane is.
I hope you never got it. You didn't ever get the cane at school, did you?
I used to get a ruler across because I was quite naughty at school. I mean, I was inventive and a bit of a leader. I used to get the ruler across my knuckles every now and then. Yes. It was the boys I used to feel really sorry for because I can remember at junior school we had a headmaster and he had all different sizes of canes. And these little boys would go in and be able to choose which one was going to be the one that gave them a spanking. No, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's very fair. However, I don't agree with children answering you back and being extremely rude and being allowed to be totally disruptive, because why would you go to school otherwise? So it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what you think about that.
Oh.
It's a whole new podcast.
Yeah, well, it could be too. I definitely don't tolerate it. So as a relief teacher, if I don't have respect, and I make it very clear to the children from the beginning, but I've got this creative streak as well. I actually got the ruler once as well in year 1.
Oh,
It was a very humiliating experience, and
it's horrid. Yeah.
I'm the creative, inventive sort as well. So I created schmickles. Schmickles are these cute little pom-poms that cost me about 30 cents to make, with googly eyes and little felt feet. And they have to work their hearts off to earn enough raffle tickets to go in the draw for a schmickle at the end of the day. And it works up until about year 3 and 4, but then I have other things for the older children. But the hilarious thing is they do it.
Oh, you should be still selling schmickles. Could be a sideline.
I would have children buying them off me at the end of the day and saying, "Oh, you're coming back tomorrow?" You know, they believed they were going to be the winner, and so if I come back tomorrow, then they might get their schmickle that they passionately thought they were going to win. They cost me about 30 cents to make. And sometimes I'll say, look, I'll be extremely generous. If I have a day that I don't have to growl and I don't have to grumble and we have a happy time, I'll give away 2.
Oh dear. Oh, I was just thinking, if you were in this day and age, you could be doing face masks with googly eyes and encouraging them to wear them.
I've actually come to realise that it wouldn't matter what it is. It's the honour, it's the value that they feel that they were the winner. It's a beautiful.
That's wonderful.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing to see. But sometimes I feel so highly manipulative.
Well, that'll be your secret, and trust that nobody hears that part. Miriam, tell me more about you. You have masters in education, and it appears to me, from having researched your bio and everything, that you worked really hard at this at a later stage in your development. Tell us more about this.
Well, that was an interesting time for me. My children were kind of heading into university, you know, they were more independent. And so I felt it was time to do something for me. Now, I was a 3-year trained teacher, so I had a diploma of teaching like 35 years or 40 years ago, and now we needed to be 4-year trained. So I decided maybe I'll just start doing this extra, what we call conversion course. And it was just 1 year, 8 units. Of course, there was no recognition of prior learning. As a homeschooler for 25 years with my children, I had to do the 8 units. And so I decided that I would just do Friday. Friday would be my day for me. And so whatever units were available on Friday, and because of my course, I could actually take any units I chose. I didn't have to stick with any particular, like, you know, 101, 102 kind of things. I could just choose what I wanted. I went on the Friday to choose my units, and to my horror, the only units available were technology. I freaked out. I could barely send an email. I think this was about 2010. And here I was with these savvy, smart, sassy 18, 19, 20-year-olds, the age of my children, learning technology. I was so humiliated at times. I'd be putting up my hand, you know, Mr. Professor, which button do I press now? You know? But I had to ask, otherwise I knew nothing. I didn't know what to do. You know, I had no framework, no scaffolding with technology, except I knew that was a computer and I knew that was a keyboard. And And so there I was on Fridays for a few years. It turns out every Friday the units were technology. But
Oh, dear.
what amazing preparation this has been for me right now.
Well, I was just going to say, so many baby boomer women find themselves suddenly confronted with all of this sort of thing. And you worked through that. And here you are now with your own podcast and also with a wonderful program as well and helping people. And by the way, listeners, Miriam has got a microphone that I actually said to her earlier on, I have microphone envy. It's pretty flat. So she's obviously, her professors obviously helped her a great deal when she was sitting there on a Friday.
Well, I can actually thank Shane, our producer, for helping me and guiding me. But I got this off Gumtree.
Oh, did you?
I did a bit of investigating, and I found an aspiring podcaster who had never used his microphone, selling it at a ridiculously cheap price. So I went and bought it and went away thinking, I hope this is not me in 2 weeks' time, putting this back onto Gumtree, because I don't use it either.
Here you are speaking about, this is tech savvy, about Gumtree and getting myself my mic, and I'm going to be doing this, and it's got some sort of screen on the front so that it doesn't sort of make too much sound reverberation and everything else. So you must go and listen to Miriam's podcast, because they're pretty cool with this amazing woman behind the mic. Miriam, when you speak about your advancement in learning to become a part of and socially as a part of the working world, how did it feel? And this is a question I ask other people. How did it feel to get that first month's salary when you knew that you'd been there, you'd physically gone and worked, and as you say, you were respected even by certain kids who were seen to be troublemakers?
Well, Susan, thank you firstly for your lovely comments about the Beautiful You podcast. I do love finding women with stories that are just blowing me away. But what I did in that, I had mixed emotions, okay? What I did was absolutely, I think I sat stunned, when I saw that money in my bank account, not having earned that sort of money for a long, long time. And there was a sense of elation, like, thank God, I can give some money to Colin, I can, buy a few things for myself. It was a very empowering feeling. But the other side of it was like, that's not going to cut it long term. How many years working have I got? How many weeks am I going to need? A whole lot more than this to actually recover from our financial loss. So interestingly, my emotions were so mixed. I was so elated to see that amount in my bank account, and I start to spend it before I even get to the shop. But then I realized this is not enough. This is not going to redeem the loss that we've incurred. And I had no super, so how many years would I need to work to actually have money to look after myself down the track? If our circumstances never changed or even got worse, I didn't have anything to fall back on.
That was a big wake-up call, wasn't it? It was sort of, oh my gosh, this is the awakening, and what Awaken Your Mind Magic is all about. It's about suddenly realizing that you are in a place where you're aware of what's going on. You have this epiphany where you're moving forward and saying, right, now what do I do? So what did you do when you felt that way?
Well, it took a little while, but I was adjusting to so many adjustments with being away from my hubby Cole and my son and living with my sister. We never got on as children, but I was just so blessed to have this restored time with her that in itself was worth every minute of that time. What I did was I started to wonder about what I could do. What was this big wide world? What could this big wide world offer me, And I didn't really have a great idea, but I started to have this voice inside of me. And this word, redemption mummas, just started to reoccur. When something just repeats itself, and then I started to think, what is this redemption mummas? I have no idea what it's about. Then, talking to a friend some months later, he made the suggestion. I was talking about my future and how am I going to, capitalize on my life experiences and actually make something out of them so that I'm not working until I'm 100 or till my last breath. And he said, why don't you look into online marketing? Well, I didn't even know what online marketing was. So I Googled online marketing, and I have to say I've been down many rabbit holes. I've been swiped, blindsided by many bright, shiny objects.
Oh, I hear you there.
It's a whole world of its own. And
it sure is.
It just was just a huge experience. But what I realized that the threads of my life were sort of starting to weave together. There was some sort of fabric coming together, and there were my life experiences. There was the depression I'd experienced, the mothering, almost a marriage breakdown, and just life experiences, like I said, and then the years of mentoring women in addiction and abuse, and then now looking at this online journey, what that was, and this whole online way of working, how did it operate? And so I was seeing some of these things start to really pull together. I could start to see some cohesiveness coming with life. And so I just started to learn everything I could about online marketing. I wasted a lot of money. My husband calls it school fees. I learned a lot along the way from some of those lessons, and it's just been amazing how now I can be so thankful for those past experiences, the technology units on a Friday that at times I just struggled to drag myself there because I felt like it was just a day of humiliation. And then it would be a week of for me, it would take me all week to learn what we'd learnt and be able to come back the next week ready for the next session. And now, it'd take me half an hour at the most to create a landing page. I'm like, wow.
How incredible is that? I mean, you think about it, I think I better come to you for a landing page because I've been trying to figure that one out. Isn't it incredible, Miriam, how where you say there was this thought that kept on going through your head, redemption mummas. And I know that you're spiritual. Do you believe that is not just your inner voice, that it is something much bigger and more powerful?
Absolutely. I teach body, soul, and spirit because there are parts of us that for many decades, as a Western culture, we have overlooked. And so I knew that this wasn't my thoughts. Redemption Mummas was completely disconnected from anything I was thinking or I was processing at the time. But knowing this voice just kept repeating itself to me, I knew that it was something I had to at least put somewhere, compartmentalize somewhere and not just dismiss. Because one of the things I do and work very strongly with in the woman I work with is the still small voice. And what I've learned about that voice is that's the voice of our spirit.
Totally is. Absolutely.
And when I learnt to listen to it and trust it and act on it, even as irrational or ridiculous or counterintuitive as it seemed, it always went well.
Certainly. I'm going to interject here. When you talk about redemption mummas, and now I know more of your story, who is the redemption mama?
Wow.
I think her name is Miriam Smout because you are the epitome of a redemption mama. There is no doubt about that.
That's very sweet of you to say that. And do you know that's been an ownership that's taken me some time? I thought of it as a third person. But now I do see that what I bring, and when I mentor women even today, I bring the experiences I've had, and because as a mentor, as someone seeking a mentor, you want someone that's gone ahead of you. You want someone that's done the journey, they've done the hard yards. They're not going to be a coach who's going to say, come on, you got to win, just press on, because when you're dealing with a lot of stuff in your life that's broken down, just getting out of bed some days can be something to cheer about and something to celebrate. So for me now as a mentor, I know that I can bring the experiences I've had and I can say, for instance, to the lovely lady that lived with us, if you just get out of bed today and you make yourself a cup of tea, let's call that a great day. Deep within, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I hope this doesn't go on too long. But the thing is that sometimes it does.
Yep.
But as a mentor, I've learned to be patient. I've learned to allow that person to walk at their pace, because one person might have experienced gross sexual abuse and the impact on their life has been massive, but they come back from it stronger, quicker. Another person experiences a lesser degree of that, and yet they suffer unendingly for much longer. So there's no formulas with this. No,
there isn't. And, we are allowed to have the pity party. We as children, especially the baby boomer generation, were taught to get up and do something and not show that you were affected by something. And so we have that mindset. The interesting thing that I've always found is when you've been through something, or one has been through something that is totally destructive, but you've been able to face that fear and make friends with it. It mightn't be your best friend, but it's something that's taught you a huge lesson. When you can tell that story standing up without breaking down, you're ready to get out there. And I believe that each one of us, whatever it is that we live through, is so that we as teachers become the people who can help those other people who've experienced these things. And so you have been through this depression with a big black dog that follows you, and you've known the fear of losing everything and not knowing where your next meal's coming. So I understand your compassion and your generosity with these people that you mentor. What I love about you, Miriam, is that you've regrouped. You weren't going to allow yourself to sit there and say, okay, I can't do this. I'm going to figure it out. And you have become the redemption mama of your program. Because we can only teach what we know. And you do it perfectly. Tell us how people can get in touch with you in order to be able to work with you.
Well, thank you for those kind words, Susan. I feel very honoured to have worked with so many women that have taught me what I know today as well. I've learned so much from them. The way that people can get in touch with me is I have a business page on Facebook called Redemption Mummas, and that is a place to connect. Also on Instagram, I have Redemption Mummas is my handle on Instagram, and they're the main places that I've been turning up of late. I'm just trying now to branch into a bit of Pinterest and a bit of LinkedIn. So I have these places there as Redemption Mummas. They're not as active just yet, as they will be very soon, I hope. So, yeah, they're the places that people can connect with me.
Well, I'm sure that with your technology savvy, you'll be able to master them. And next thing we'll know is this Redemption Mama will be teaching us all how to do it. So anybody out there who wants to connect with Miriam, I will leave all of her links with this podcast in order for you to connect with her. Miriam, thank you so much for taking time to chat to us today. I've really appreciated it. And I wish you even more success than you have now with Redemption Mamas and for your Beautiful You project, as your Aussies call it.
Thank you, Susan. I really appreciate the time, and for anyone wanting to step into their beautiful you and be healed and whole from the inside out, take action. That's what I want to say. Take action.
Totally. And when you have a spiritual person like this Redemption Mama, you're going to have the best guidance you possibly ever could wish for. So thank you again, Miriam.
Thank you.
Bye now. That's Awaken Your Mind Magic for another week. If anything you've heard today has really impacted you and you want to know more, or you would just like to connect with me, then visit my website, awakenyourmindmagic.com, and reach out for a free one-on-one discovery session with me.
Silver on the
next week, where I'll be discussing more tools to unlock your dreams and live a limitless life that you would truly love to live. I'm Susan Kathleen, and this has been Awaken Your Mind Magic.